John 8, 1 through 11, this is a story of the woman caught in adultery. It says this: Jesus returned to the Mount of Olives, but early the next morning he was back again at the temple. The crowd gathered, and he sat down and taught them. As he was speaking, the teachers of the religious law and the Pharisees brought a woman who had been caught in the act of adultery. They put her in front of the crowd. "Teacher," they said to Jesus, "this woman was caught in the act of adultery. The law of Moses says to stone her. What do you say?" They were trying to trap him into saying something they could use against him. But Jesus stooped down and wrote in the dust with his finger. And they kept demanding an answer. So he stood up again and said, "All right, but let the one who has never sinned throw the first stone." He stooped down again and wrote in the dust. When the accusers heard this, they slipped away one by one, beginning with the oldest, until only Jesus was left in the middle of the crowd with the woman. Then Jesus stood up and said to the woman, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" "No, Lord," she said. And Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you. Go and sin no more." So the Pharisees were trying to trap Jesus, putting him in a situation where he'd have to make a decision. Either he could uphold the law of Moses, which said in the Old Testament that you had to stone someone for committing adultery, or he could show mercy and grace, and therefore he would show not to uphold the law. And he chose to show grace. But the way that Jesus showed grace was masterful, because instead of condemning her, he said, "He who is without sin, throw the first stone." And so what Jesus was doing is he was showing, look, there's pride in your hearts that's trying to get this woman convicted, yet you are condemning her, yet you're full of condemnation and sin yourself. Another interesting aspect is it says that Jesus stooped down and wrote in the sand with his finger. Nobody really knows what he wrote. Maybe he wrote down a list of sins. Maybe he wrote down a list of names. Maybe he wrote down nothing important. Just he was doodling in the sand, showing he was minding his own business or something. We don't know. But either way, there was such a presence of the Holy Spirit and such a conviction that they all actually left and they started to walk away one by one. And so by allowing the woman to be forgiven, he wasn't excusing adultery. He wasn't saying it's okay to sin in this way. Jesus still does not approve of adultery, but he's alone with the woman, and he said to her, "Where are your accusers? Didn't even one of them condemn you?" And she said, "No, Lord." And then Jesus said, "Neither do I condemn you." But then he said this, "Go and sin no more." So what we see there is that the grace of God empowers you to stop sinning. That grace abounds all the more. Where sin abounds, grace abounds all the more. But the grace of God is not a license to keep living a immoral lifestyle, but the grace of God is the empowerment to walk now in obedience. So now this woman, Jesus said, don't sin anymore. Don't live this lifestyle anymore. Now live pure.